The Raiders saying goodbye to 25. With one game remaining, who belongs in 26? Raider Nation Radio's Q Myers looks ahead. And with the first pick on the line, who could go number one? NFL Media's Mike Yam is talking NFL draft. Plus, JT the Brick sits down with head coach Pete Carroll. The Silver and Black Show starts now. Welcome into the Silver and Black Show, and Happy New Year, everyone. I'm Amber Theoharis. As the Raiders close out the season against the Chiefs, we look to what's next. 2025 was the year of the snake, and for many, it's seen as a time of transition and growth, sort of a shedding of the skin. And for the Raiders, it was just that. New coach, new quarterback, and ultimately, though, a record they would like to leave behind. 2026, though, is the year of the horse, which Chinese culture sees as a year of success and good fortune. A year to ride freely into new things. And there's nothing Raider Nation wants more. But how do they get there? To talk about Sunday's game and the future, we welcome in my good buddy, Q Myers from Raider Nation Radio. Q, Happy New Year to you. How you doing?
Happy New Year's to you. I'm doing well. It's always a good time when we get to catch up with each other. So, yeah, definitely appreciate you having me on the show again.
Well, it's a time to reflect, and it's a time to look forward as well. We do that going into every new year, but we're going into the final game. There's a lot to talk about with this team. When you look at things to build on, that were actual positive building blocks or foundational things, what do you think of?
I mean, I look at guys like Ashton Genty, and I know that he hasn't had the world-beating season that a lot of people anticipated as a rookie, but you see glimpses of what he can do, and you understand that he's going to be a key cog moving forward. I look at him as a blue-chip player. Obviously, Brock Bowers, blue-chip player. I also look at guys like Caleb Rogers, we've starting to see him get a lot more action on that offensive line, and I feel like he could be a part of the solution that is the problem of the offensive line and its struggles this year. And it's a very small sample size, so I kind of hesitate to say this. I also think Charles Grant could be a part of that. I do believe that he's a little bit slower as far as, growing into the position on the NFL level coming from William and Mary, but I do believe that a lot of people have high hopes for him. We've seen him in a handful of snaps, and it looks like he has the opportunity to be something. So I think there's a few pieces that this team has brought in this year, John Spytek and company, and you feel like, okay, this team could start to grow around those guys as long as they make some really good decisions in this offseason.
How about the defensive side, though? You kind of listed all offensive guys there.
Well, yeah, I mean, defensively, Eric Stokes, I think he's been quietly having a really good season. I actually said that to him in the locker room just a couple of weeks ago, and I said, how big was this season for you? I know the record's not what it's supposed to be and what you wanted or anybody else in this locker room. And he said, no, it's been a big season, and he had to go out and prove, not to himself because he always believed in himself, but prove to others that he could stay healthy all season long. He could still be that guy that he was when the Packers drafted him in the first round. And honestly, he was. Without taking the ball away at all this year, he's been a really good player in that secondary. I think he's a guy that the Raiders would be very smart to bring back, and again, continue to build around him. And I think Darian Porter has an opportunity to be that guy as well. He's taken a few lumps along the way, especially lately, but he's also had some really good plays where you say, yeah, I see that he understands it, and he has a true corner's memory. None. He doesn't have a memory. So if a bad play happens, he just, he clears it and goes on to the next play. I do think that those are a couple corners that you should get excited about as well.
When you're talking about Darian Porter, Eric Allen, he also likes some of the growth that he saw, our Hall of Fame corner. And he said that he likes the instinct. You look for things like instinct. I know you talk about toughness and resilience, but what did you see from him in that realm?
Yeah, I think that, well, first of all, if the Hall of Famer EA likes somebody, I better like him, right? Especially in that corner position. I think he knows what he's looking for. But we've actually had discussions together about Darian Porter, and he does, like his instincts. And I think that there's something to be said about that, right? I mean, if you kind of already know the position, I think that this is somewhat of an advantage that he has because he played the wide receiver position. So he knows how to, or what his job was to beat corners. Now playing the corner position, he kind of knows what it's like on the other side. So he almost can recognize routes. And I think that that is going to give him an opportunity later on, who knows, maybe even this week, to make a play or make two plays because he can recognize quicker than a guy that never played the wide receiver position, never played the offensive side of the ball, and they're just, backpedaling and trying to react. He kind of could see where plays are developing and how they're developing. I'll give you a perfect example. There was a play in the Giants game, and I know the Giants beat the brakes off the Raiders, but Jackson Dart scored on this. It was a rollout. I believe it was on fourth down, and it was a rollout, and he basically could have walked to the end zone. But what Darian Porter did and stuck with the tight end, he just recognized that route by that tight end, and that was his job. That was his role. And so he stuck with him and shadowed him. And I thought that that was just a perfect kind of a moment of growth for him. Again, Jackson Dart ended up ultimately scoring on an easy play, but you could see that Darian Porter understood his job and his what he was supposed to do in that moment.
Who are some of the guys that they probably know they're on the bubble? We all can be real with ourselves. I've gone into contract years myself in television going, I know I might be on the bubble, and you want to put some good tape out there. Who are some of those guys that this game does mean something to them?
Yeah, there's. I think the Raiders have a handful of these guys. I could look at a guy like Devin White, who has had a ton of tackles this season, and he's been able to stay healthy all year long, and he feels real fortunate to be with the Raiders and have a chance. And as he told me in the locker room, like, Q, I came here on a vet minimum. He's like, I'm basically working for free, right, just to keep my body in shape so I can go throughout the course of the year. I think a guy like Devin White, as he's told me that he would love to come back next year, is trying to prove his worth to this team. And everything he's done this year hasn't been great, but he has been resilient. He has been a guy that has been there start to finish all season long, leads a team in tackles. And when you break a season record for tackles with this Raiders organization, that kind of tells you something. And so he's topped the number that Robert Spillane had just a couple seasons ago. And so you got to give him credit for that, and also the leadership that he's tried to bring. So I think this is a really big game for a guy like Devin White. I think that he realizes what he needs to continue to do and just kind of seal the deal to try to ensure that he comes back next season.
There's a lot of talk of a rebuild this season, and you and I know that's a tough word, because what does it mean? Does it mean you get rid of everybody and bring all new people in? No. And finding that balance is really interesting, because when you look around at the NFL, we've got 5 teams that were in last place last year that are now either in the playoffs or fighting for first place going into last week. They didn't just completely knock down the entire house. They kept some of the bricks. So what do you think the Raiders' philosophy will be? Because look, you can turn things around in one season in the NFL.
You really can, as long as you make the right decisions, and that's what their task is going to be. And that comes to free agency. That obviously is the draft. I mean, that bringing your own guys back, letting some of the guys graduate on and go somewhere else if they're not fitting what you're trying to do. So yeah, I think that the Raiders' philosophy has to be able to get the trenches where it needs to be. I think first and foremost that has to be the biggest, the most, I guess, active part of this offseason is how do you get the trenches right, and especially that offensive line. And as I mentioned, Caleb Rogers and Charles Grant, I think they're part of the solution. Colton Miller is going to come back healthy. So, where are you going to put JPJ? I think you have to identify his role, what his job's going to be, what position you want him at, and keep him there. There's no yo-yo effect with them. Keep him wherever you want him at. You're probably going to have to get 2 more starters along that offensive line. You might have to go out in free agency and get a guy, like a center. There's a really good center in Baltimore that's probably going to be a free agent. I would keep my eye on him, just throwing it out there. And there's a few, I think building blocks that they can attack early on in free agency, and you can start to see the philosophy of the Raiders. And then when they get to the draft, then they're able to fill in the voids that they weren't able to get in free agency, and they have a lot of salary cap space this offseason.
And right now they have the number 1 overall draft pick. There's a 94% chance they'll stay there. Even if they don't, they have the number 2. So 1 or 2 for the Raiders. Should you not automatically say they got to get a quarterback at 1 or 2, or do you?
No, I don't think you have to say it right away. I think that you could believe it, though. I think in your mind you can know that you need to get a quarterback. What you're hoping is that Dante Moore from Oregon does declare for the NFL draft, and there's a couple there that teams are looking at and eyeballing, right? And especially if you, like I said, end up maybe even with the number 2 overall pick, having options, because I think that that's the most powerful weapon to have in the NFL is options. If you end up at the number 1 overall pick, you can, you can really love a quarterback and say, hey, I'm going to go get Fernando Mendoza, but I'm not going to tell anybody else that. I'm not going to let anyone else know that, because there may be a team that's desperate like the Jets to go to that number one spot. And they may be sitting there at number 3, and they might really, really, want that spot and covet it. And they're willing to give you a king's ransom. And then you can reevaluate, well, how much do we love Mendoza? Do we love more? Do we like both of them enough to say that we could see either one of those guys being our franchise quarterback? Yeah, let's trade back a couple spots with the Jets, collect some more capital, still get our guy, and still be able to build what this team needs, which is more talent. Like, there's so many different options. I feel like if you get the number 1 overall pick, you're in a position of power, and that's what the Raiders really need. I mean, this offseason could be one of the most adventurous offseasons, maybe most important offseasons for the Raiders in a very, very long time, since the last time they had, 3 first-round picks back in, 2019? This was probably the most important offseason that they're going to have since then. So I think that there's just got to be a lot of smart decisions and a lot of agreement. Everyone's got to be on the same page. They can't be going in different directions. Everyone's got to be on the same page with the understanding of how this team is going to be built moving forward.
Yeah, but the number one priority, I think, also needs to be fixing that offensive line, because even if you have the number 1 pick, or if you have a veteran quarterback, nobody's going to succeed unless they have a better offensive line play in front of them. All right, Q, happy New Year to you and your family. Thanks for coming on, my friend.
Absolutely. Happy New Year's to you. It's always a pleasure. I appreciate you.
Thanks. Coming up, Raiders head coach Pete Carroll sits down with JT the Brick next on the Silver and Black Show.
How about totally obsessed? We created a cocktail that requires 7 unique ingredients. The most important one, 1800 tequila. Just as obsessed with taste and quality as we are. The world's most awarded tequila, proudly poured at the world's best bar.
At Cox, we're always a step ahead. There you go. I'll show you. Like, before your basement became Movie Central, we made sure you'd have strong Wi-Fi, even down here. And you can rest easy knowing the price of your plan won't go up for 3 years. Guaranteed. See? He's looking out for you, and so are we, with advanced security that blocks threats on your network. Good boy. Whatever the future brings, Cox will keep you a step ahead. Oh.
Every year, millions fly with us at Allegiant because together, we go places. We see old friends and try new things. We laugh. We really like to laugh. And reconnect. We remember. And we wander, which leads to wonder. From how we go to where we go to what we do when we get there, we go further together.
The Silver and Black Show is brought to you by Cox, proud partner of the Las Vegas Raiders. Allegiant, the official airline of the Raiders. Low fares, nonstop flights, only at Allegiant.com. Victory Live, connecting the world of live experiences. And by 1800 Tequila, official partner of the Raiders. Taste is everything. Please drink responsibly.
We welcome in head coach Pete Carroll. So, Coach, the Giants came in and they played a spirited game, very physical game overall. Assess your performance.
Yeah, we found a way to get in trouble in all 3 phases. We had trouble on offense by turning the ball over. We had trouble on defense. We couldn't get them knocked out, and when we had some chances to, third downs again became an issue. And then the kicking game, the big play in the kicking game, when there was a chance to return and seize some kind of momentum, it was moments later that they returned the kickoff for a touchdown. So it was just unfortunate, and you could tell that we missed some guys that weren't out there, and But fortunately, to his credit, Mike Mayer had a great game, and played really well, and kind of filled in for Brock. We didn't get much of the rush that we would like to have gotten on, for Max not being available, and we missed Jeremy Chin too. Those guys are good players.
Before we get to Mike's game, I want to stay with special teams because I know how the passion you have for tackling and fundamentals there. You made a coaching change mid-season, and then you gave up another backbreaker there. Going into this game, is there anything left to do to get that unit to come together and have a big performance?
Yeah, we have to play consistently. If you saw the game Tommy Eichenberg had, making hits down there inside the 20 or around the 20-yard line, and some phenomenal hits. Well, Tommy had a chance on that last one too, and somebody else needed to help him and come to his aid somewhat. But so it's just finding the consistency. We've had games where we've been like we're supposed to be, where there's no issues. The kicking game should be no issues, and to give up a play like that at a timely moment in a game was really costly for us.
Let's get to Big Mike. I am excited for his future because I always thought he was more than just a blocking tight end and a special teams guy. He could put up big numbers in 12 personnel. What is encouraging to the fans going forward with him with that athletic ability that he has?
Well, Mike hasn't really shown us anything different. He just had more opportunity.
Yeah.
And Mike he's had a phenomenal year for us.
Okay.
He's been solid as a rock in all phases. He is a good special teams player, as a complimentary guy there, but he can catch and run, and he can block, and he's gifted with multiple aspects to his game, which we like. And he showed you how tough he is too. He ran really tough in that game and took care of the football in a good fashion.
1,200 plus scrimmage yards for Ashton. I want to spend a few minutes on him. I'm just amazed. When he gets hit behind the line of scrimmage, it happens. That happened a lot this year. He can only do so much. When he hits the hole and has an opportunity to make a play, especially in the passing game, overall, if we can put a bow on his season going into this last game, what encourages you about his career going forward?
Well, there's no question, and I think you're right on it. And there's a play in this game when you see him do something. He steps out of a tackle and kind of hops through it. Like, you don't see guys do very often. He's got a real creativity to him that allows him to really be a big threat in the open field. And so I think he's had a terrific season. We'd love to get him 120 or whatever he needs, to get him 1,000. It'd be fun to get that done. But he's contributed in many ways. Look at him catching the ball down the field, in the last couple of weeks. Again, he makes plays. So he's a big threat. We love him, and he's still just getting warmed up, just getting started.
Gino has an ankle going forward. Assess him and the season, the struggles he's had, but the depth going into this game at quarterback and what you're looking forward to.
Yeah, it's going to be hard for Gino to play. He had a pretty good ankle sprain. We thought it was the high ankle. That was the first determination, but it wasn't clear until they did the MRIs and all that. But it's going to be difficult for him. We'll see what happens during this week. But right now we have to look to Kenny, and we got to look to Aiden and let those guys. I want both those guys to play in this game, and so we'll see how we map that out. But as we get through the week. But it'll be fun to see them play. Those guys have worked really hard, and they're good competitive ball players, and there's the competition's on, and so there's nothing I like more than competition.
You've coached some great defensive players throughout your career, and a lot of them on winning teams. Have you ever had anything more unique than this Max situation? He's back in the building here. How you handled that, how he handled it, and what you do with him going forward. Yeah,
Max is he's one of a kind. He's a great player, and he's a great competitor in all aspects of what he brings to this game. And he loves playing so much that it was just too hard for him to find a way to rationalize, I can't play. He's been making it back each week. When they finally got some tests done, it was clear that it was bad. Yeah. And so, but he could still do it, and he knew that, and he just wanted to keep playing. And I totally can relate to him. I would want to do exactly the same thing, and I'd have fought it this in similar fashion. I would like to think, because it's just the makeup that we have to compete. And so he just needed some time to just clear his head, and he's back in here yesterday and with the fellas and feeling comfortable about it and mixing, and he'll be inspiring guys, motivating guys throughout. He's always done it with his play and his outlook, and so now he'll do it with just trying to influence those guys into playing the kind of football they're capable of playing.
The last game for this defensive line, I think it's intriguing who's going to step up when Mac's not there and get an opportunity. You always talk about another opportunity, an opportunity to compete. It would be great to see someone pop on tape and have a big game against a division rival.
Yeah, there's no doubt. And Malcolm, he was active in this game last week and was maybe tried to make some plays, trying to fill in the shoes for Max. Tyree Wilson had a good chance to show that. We'd love to see more activity out of him, so he gets a good opportunity. This is a guy that a couple years back, we thought the organization thought that he was going to be a big factor for us. So he's got a chance to show that, and could stand out more so with Max not being on the field. So we'll give him a grade up there. Harvey got a chance to play a little bit for the first time and show what he can do, and he's battling his tail off. He hadn't played all year long, but he's going to try to see if he can add something to it. Tonka got on the end a little bit last week and made a couple plays, so that's a positive look forward to, and see if he can do it again.
One more player I wanted to highlight, Coach, is Eric Stokes, because Caillou's injury and Porter, you're playing young guys. They're going to kind of get thrown into the fire and make some plays or make some mistakes, but you've pointed his name out the last couple of weeks, and tell us a little bit more about him.
Yeah, Eric has had a really solid year. He's a fantastic athlete. He's got great speed. He runs under 4.3 somewhere in his college days, and it shows up in his change of direction and his quickness. He's really taken to the way we coach him. We've made him a press corner and really emphasized that for him, and he plays his techniques off of being a press guy. He's won a lot. He's probably one of the top, handful of guys in the league, numbers-wise and all of that. He stood up to the challenges. So he's done a really good job. And I know he's really excited about this opportunity to emerge, and get back. Because he had a rough go first couple of years, being banged up and in and out of the lineups, and we thought we saw something in him, and it's really come to the front. So I'm excited for him. I know he's excited about his game.
Chris Oladokin, what can you tell us about him? Third-string quarterbacks can be a wild card at the end of the year, right?
Yeah.
You put someone in there, they want to make a play. What can you tell us when you look at the tape?
Yeah, well, he's an active football player. He runs around a lot. He's a good athlete. Not the fastest guy, but he's fast, and he has a knack for taking off. They're trying to make the game such that he can handle the passing game, counting on him to take off and run. And so he's a guy that he'll drop back looking to throw it, but if he doesn't see what he wants, he's taking off. So we have to take care of him and see if we can get after the football when he's carrying it. They haven't scored a lot of points the last few weeks. They've been struggling a little bit. They've had a big series of injuries. They've had, I think, they're 4 tackles down, if you can imagine. It's similar. We had one starter playing last week. For us too. So we know how hard that is. So the running backs are still really productive, and they're tough, and we need to deal with them. But if they could keep it in line, they would want Ola to not have to do a lot of throwing the ball down the field, and see if he can run the football and control it with the passing game underneath and his scrambles.
I never predict players retiring until they announce they're retiring, but there's a lot of talk about Travis Kelce, and my theory is he's not going to go out in a losing season. He's not going to go out without Mahomes, who's injured here. But Travis Kelce's been a big name.
How do you know that?
I don't. I just have radio opinions. But
there you go.
with Kelce, he's been a very interesting player for you to coach against. And just wanted your comments on his career so far coming into his last game of the season.
He's had a spectacular career because he's done it for so long.
Yeah.
Some guys can have 2 or 3 years where they're on it and they hit it. But he's been a major force on a very successful team. I think this is his 12th year, is that what it is? And he's still doing it. And they still go to him, and he still makes plays. And he's their leading target guy, and he's come through time after time. And he and Mahomes had a great chemistry in the makeup that it isn't as obvious right now, of course, but he's still going to make his plays, and they have an offense designed where he has a lot of latitude to get open and to make space in his option running and things like that, and he's great at it, So, and he comes through and makes the big catches, and he's the big play guy, when they need him. So he's had an incredible career, and so noteworthy down the stretch here with Taylor and the whole thing. It's just been an amazing kind of storyline. So, I don't know how many years he wants to keep playing. I don't know anything about that, but I know he's going to battle this weekend, so we got to take care of it.
I know finally that you and Andy Reid have been 2 of the most successful coaches over the last 20 years and had some great battles overall. Andy Reid's coming in here to win this game. And as everyone talks about picks and draft order and all that, I know you and Andy take the high road all the time and want to compete your butt off to win games and show each other the respect you have for each other.
Yeah, well, you go all the way back. You look at Andy in preseason, he plays his guys. He's trying to get them ready to play the football season. Where a lot of people say, oh, you shouldn't do this, you shouldn't do that. That's guys that sit at your desk, but when you're coaching, it's a mentality that you're trying to, be pervasive throughout your program. Andy's had that with his long-term success. They know what he's all about and where he's coming from, and he's serious as you can get about trying to win football games. Well, we're going to go nose to nose. This will be a good battle. We're kind of playing with, we're limping our way into this game, both teams, and we'll see what happens. But on game time is going to be the biggest game in the world for us, and we're going to do everything we can to get him. And I love Andy, and I love his family and his background and all the things that he's stood for, and his success speaks for itself. But it's fun to go against him.
Coach, not many coaches do this every week. You were kind enough with your time every game this year. I want to thank you for that, especially our audience here. Your final thoughts on the season going into this last game, to the fans, a message. It wasn't the season you expected when it started, but you've been a class act coming in here every week. What would you like to share with the fans?
Yeah, it's been most disappointing. I mean, I never imagined that we would have this much trouble winning our games, and so we've been on the other side of battling to keep our focus and to stay with it and to keep the principles that we have designed to guide the program. Our players have done a really good job in prepping every week. They're into it. They come to the meetings with energy. They practice hard and work at it. They compete to make each other better every day. The whole goal for the players has been to be a great teammate, and that means you got to bring it every day, and you got to be accountable. And the guys have really done that. The successes haven't been there. It started right in preseason. We couldn't get our wins then, and we've been struggling the whole time to get them. I'm proud of these guys, the way they battled. I love coaching these guys. It's been fun. The personalities and the characters that are on this team, they're going to be the same guys that are going to be there when we're winning a bunch of games.
Thank you, Coach. Good luck.
All right. See you, JT.
Coming up, the Raiders currently hold the first pick in the 2026 draft. Who should they take? NFL Network's Mike Yam joins the show next.
From the fabulous Las Vegas, Nevada, what a move!
At Cox, we're always a step ahead. There you go. I'll show you. Like, before your basement became Movie Central, we made sure you'd have strong Wi-Fi, even down here. And you can rest easy knowing the price of your plan won't go up for 3 years. Guaranteed. See? He's looking out for you, and so are we, with advanced security that blocks threats on your network. Good boy. Whatever the future brings, Cox will keep you a step ahead. Oh.
Every year, millions fly with us at Allegiant because together, we go places. We see old friends and try new things. We laugh. We really like to laugh. And reconnect. We remember. And we wander, which leads to wonder. From how we go to where we go to what we do when we get there, we go further together.
How about totally obsessed? We created a cocktail that requires 7 unique ingredients. The most important one, 1800 tequila. Just as obsessed with taste and quality as we are. The world's most awarded tequila, proudly poured at the world's best bar.
Welcome back as the Raiders get ready to take on the Chiefs in the last game of the season. There is so much left unanswered, but first, a lot of reflection needs to happen. And to help us do that, let's bring in NFL Media's Mike Yam, a good friend of mine. Mike, happy holidays to you. Good to see you.
You as well. Always appreciate the invite. I don't know for Raiders fans if this is something that they want to actually process or just wait a couple weeks until after the draft to talk about the season. But I get it. It's been not the way that we thought it was going to work out this year for this team.
Not even a little bit, but let's start out with the last draft, right? There was Ashton Genty went 6th overall to the Raiders, and then 10 more players went after him. It was a big draft for John Spytek in his first draft. How do you assess this group, going into the end of the season here?
Yeah, look, I mean, I think every Raiders fan's got to be disappointed. I'm sure the front office is disappointed, the coaching staff inside that locker room, because the expectations, I think, were significantly higher than potentially getting the number one overall pick this year. And I think it's looking like a 45, maybe even higher percentage for this team to grab that spot. I look, Amber, you and I had known each other for a really long period of time. I had a Heisman vote. I still have that vote. And, I didn't vote for Genty, but he was number two on my ballot. I felt like once Sunday football started for this kid, he would be absolutely electric. And I think we've seen some flashes from him at times, but it hasn't been sustained. I think for a good stretch of most of the first half of the season, we didn't see the explosive guy that we saw at Boise State, thrive in a lot of those games and be a difference maker. You can point to an inability for this team to get the ball down the field. Explosive plays were really limited. The interceptions continued to pile up, but I think him as the centerpiece, I still feel relatively confident if this offensive line, if we can patch this thing up, we got an opportunity to just have more of an improved offense, because it has been tough sledding to watch this team at different times of the year.
Obviously, you're huge in college football as well as the NFL. Looking at somebody like Jack Besh, there wasn't a lot of discussion, but we did get to see a little bit from him. Not as much from a Dante Thornton, but I feel like those two receivers, they were in the top 3 rounds. They should get, top 4 rounds. It's kind of undecided on what their future is, and I really want to see more.
Yeah, no, I think then that's kind of the disappointing thing. When you think about the stall drive so far this season, and Besh was a guy that I actually really liked coming out of school, and I do think that there's still some upside here. But Amber, like if you can't run the football effectively and you continuously turn over the football, and I think some of these picks for Geno, some of them are on him, some of them aren't necessarily on him. But how many times have we seen Genty get the football in the backfield and the penetration from a defensive line is already up in his grill? I mean, there wasn't much room for him to really move. And I think when you become so limited, whether it was Chip Kelly or whoever it's going to be in the long term, calling plays for this team, I just think you're hamstrung. And I think to your point, Amber, like the evolution of players, especially in that rookie season, it's not just year one. I mean, look at the development across the league over the last 10 or 15 years. There are players that have okay rookie seasons and then really come on strong in these subsequent years. And I still think the jury's still out on last year's class, but I think the focal point has to be, how do we get better right now? And does it start with drafting a quarterback? And if that is the case, who is that player? Is there a franchise guy in this year's class that you think can be a difference maker? Fernando Mendoza's name has popped up. I got to know him a little bit when he was at Cal, and obviously has balled out at Indiana and has had a tremendous college career, especially this past season. Dante Moore's name has popped up there. I don't even know if he decides to leave Oregon and play maybe just one more season there and continue to draft or increase his draft stock. But look, if he's the number one pick, I think it's a hard ask to go and say, hey, I'm going to go back to school for one more year. But Amber, this, man, in the day and age of NIL, the dollars can be extreme. But at the end of the day, I think that there's a lot of questions that this team has to answer. And more specifically, what do you do with that number one overall pick? There's a lot of holes there. And I think most fans would look at quarterback, and I'm not saying that that's the wrong choice, but there's some gaps in this roster, and they need to figure things out quickly.
I'm going to ask you a double-barreled question here. One you don't have to answer. It's kind of like asking your political vote, but you do have a Heisman vote. Did you vote for Fernando Mendoza?
I did.
Okay, so you think he's the best player in college football right now. Now, let me ask you this. If you're the Raiders and you do have the number one overall pick, do you go with that, with a quarterback, because you think he is the best player in the draft right now?
So I'll answer it this way, Amber, because for as much as I think that Fernando Mendoza had the best season in college football and deserved to be the Heisman winner, I am not 100% sure of what he is when he gets to Sunday football. Now, to be fair, I thought Ashton Genty was going to be on the short list for, offensive rookie of the year this season. That clearly didn't happen. So the assessment might be a little skewed here, but, you think about the skill set that Fernando has. And I sometimes, as an individual, struggle when I think about those first impressions, and I think of him as one of truly the nicest kids you'll ever meet in college football. And I want nothing more than success for this guy, but I don't know what he is as an NFL Sunday quarterback. I think we've seen a level of toughness that I don't know if I necessarily saw at Cal. I saw that in Indiana. I saw critical throws throughout the course of the season. But is he Cam Ward, for example? Amber, this because we're friends. I'm a Giants fan, right? Like we had Jackson Dart, and do I think he's a franchise quarterback? Yeah, I feel relatively confident. Do I love Cam Ward? Would have loved to have him on my roster? Yeah, absolutely. If I look at a comp between Cam Ward and Fernando Mendoza in different classes, the Cam Ward to me is a guy that I would draft number one overall. And I'll say this: if Dante Moore decides not to go back to Oregon, then I think there's a real conversation there, because in my mind, I might lean towards Dante Moore as a guy that I think could thrive on Sundays. The mobility that's there. And I'm not saying that he's Jaden Daniels, but I remember seeing Jaden Daniels in his very first start at Arizona State. I was there for that game. And then his maturation and maturity process. I don't quite think Dante Moore is as experienced because of the lack of reps that he's had at the college level. But Dante Moore, to me, has has a pretty high ceiling as an NFL quarterback. So, I feel like I'm talking around your question a little bit. I really like Fernando. I just need to see a little bit more and do some dissecting of the tape to go, hey, is this guy really a franchise quarterback that deserves to be the number one overall pick?
It's a fair question. Just because you need a quarterback and just because you have the number one overall pick doesn't mean that that's the best selection. And that, I think, it's going to be a tough position for the Raiders or whoever has a top couple of picks in this draft if they need a quarterback. Let's talk a little bit about this game. I mean, I haven't talked about the game all show. There is a game. And, the Chiefs are out of it. The Raiders are out of it. What will you be looking for in this game? What is worth focusing on?
So I think it goes back to your initial question on the rookies, because, and take it from me, and I'll reference sort of the Giants fandom the last 2 years, winning some games where you're like, from a fan perspective, I'd love to have a higher draft pick, of course, and see if we can sort of trade down. But to me, this is the difference between being a fan and being inside that locker room. Like, there is a true love of the game for a lot of these players. And it's not just, hey, we want to win and we're competitive. Like, there are jobs on the line. And I still think when you watch this game from Kansas City, and the Chiefs are a team that I think has got a lot of questions that they need to answer over this offseason, and roster building and some tweaking and maybe some major tweaking there. But I think guys want good tape. And if it's not with the current team, whether it's the Raiders or the Chiefs, I still think that they want to make sure that they're still employed. They're going to be inside these locker rooms over the next few years and give themselves an opportunity to continue to be NFL players. So I think the thing to watch for is when you go back after the game, who's got the extreme effort, who's chasing down every opportunity to make a tackle, for example. And I know there's been some issues obviously on the defensive side here. Disappointed obviously I didn't get to see Max Crosby play. I'm sure he's disappointed that he's not out there. That's been well chronicled. But I want to see the guys that absolutely want it on a consistent basis, even when a postseason spot isn't on the line.
What are some of the biggest needs you think the Raiders have after watching the season?
Offensive line, and offensive line. Look, I think at the end of the day, they still have the premier tight end in football. Quarterback play, obviously, with these turnovers was a massive, massive issue. I still feel very confident in Ashton Genty being one of the premier running backs in the NFL over the next few years. We just saw on Monday Night Football, Bijan Robinson. The guy's absolutely electric, and his ability coming out of that backfield has been a difference maker. Now, the Falcons, that's a whole other conversation that we can have on a separate show at one point. Like, there's some problems there, and I think they've underachieved. And I don't know if the roster right now is as good as Atlanta's, but I do look at what the Raiders have, and I go, hey, like, this team, has got the potential to be better. But when you can't protect the quarterback, when you consistently turn over the football like they have this year, it does hamstring them. So in my mind, how do you patch up this offensive line? It really would be step number one. And then what is the real long-term solution at that quarterback spot? Because the last couple of years, it has been a little bit of a revolving door. And I think if you can settle that spot, you got a chance to go and win. And you have options. If this team finishes with the number one overall pick, they can decide, hey, is Fernando Mendoza, is Dante Moore, or is that the long-term solution for this organization? Or do we try to trade out of this pick, accumulate more assets, and really fix an offensive line that's had some problems protecting?
Which isn't sexy, but sometimes it's the right move, and no doubt about it. And so many GMs are scared to do that. We haven't even talked about free agency. That's another way to get players.
Totally.
Who are some maybe big name free agents that are expected to come out that maybe with all this cap space? I mean, the Raiders have about $120 million in cap space that they might want to focus on, or at least
I actually think it's a really good point, because for right now, at least at NFL Network, right, we're having conversations about the league MVP. And I think after watching Matthew Stafford throw 3 interceptions on Monday Night Football, all of a sudden Drake May, whose name has been in the mix, but Drake May now all of a sudden becomes a favorite. Mike Vrabel as their head coach. I bring this up because you look at that roster this season compared to last year, like the Patriots team looks dramatically different. They went on a spending spree this off season, and I don't think you could be shocked now maybe winning the AFC East and taking out the Bills, who would essentially own that division, and maybe even being a number 1 seed, because there's still a path for them to be there in the AFC. That is surprising. But did I see this team being improved? Yes. And I think it speaks to your point. How do you allocate some of these dollars? Now, I know the Packers have lost a couple of these, and this is not, I don't think, what Raiders fans want to hear, but I think Malik Willis, who's sort of this athletic quarterback that I thought has played well for Jordan Love, like, how much availability is there? We've seen other teams rely on other quarterbacks, depth at that position. Is there a guy that you like that could be a stopgap to allowing Fernando Mendoza, for example, to develop? And maybe they have that guy. Maybe they look at, maybe if the Raiders sit there and say, hey, we got the number 1 pick, it's going to be Dante, it's going to be Fernando, we're going to go quarterback here. Gino's on this roster, and how does Gino help us bridge to that next guy? Maybe that is the solution. I'm not saying that that's the path that I would necessarily go, but I do think it is a reasonable expectation to look at free agents, look at what the Patriots did. That's the blueprint, because very quickly they were able to turn around that franchise.
We appreciate you, Mike Yam. Thanks for being with us, and Happy New Year.
Always appreciate the invite. You as well.
All right, coming up, who should the Raiders take into 2026? It's One Last Thing next.
From the fabulous Las Vegas, Nevada,
At Cox, we're always a step ahead. There you go. I'll show you. Like, before your basement became Movie Central, we made sure you'd have strong Wi-Fi, even down here. And you can rest easy knowing the price of your plan won't go up for 3 years. Guaranteed. See? He's looking out for you, and so are we, with advanced security that blocks threats on your network. Good boy. Whatever the future brings, Cox will keep you a step ahead. Oh.
Every year, millions fly with us at Allegiant because together, we go places. We see old friends and try new things. We laugh. We really like to laugh. And reconnect. We remember. And we wander, which leads to wonder. From how we go to where we go to what we do when we get there, we go further together.
The Silver and Black Show has been brought to you by Cox, proud partner of the Las Vegas Raiders. Allegiant, the official airline of the Raiders. Low fares, nonstop flights, only at Allegiant.com. And by Ticketmaster, the official ticket marketplace of the Las Vegas Raiders and the NFL. Time now for one last thing. The Raiders have a 2-14 record, and it's hard to find a silver lining in that. It's easy to call for a complete roster overhaul, but that's not easy to do. Some will stay and some will go. But the past 2 drafts, we do know, have produced key pieces to build around. Ashton Genty's over 1,200 yards from scrimmage leads all rookies. And Brock Bowers was just selected to a second Pro Bowl despite missing 3 games. A loss that did have a huge impact on the rhythm of the offense early on.
We saw a tremendous game right off the bat, in New England. Obviously, look at their team now. They've had a fantastic season, and that was a pretty solid win for us. And Brock got hurt in that game in the fourth quarter, and I don't think we adapted well with that, and so we went through a few weeks of floundering. If you're asking the question, a little bit, did it go south or something? I don't think that. I think that's what we look like without those guys playing, and unfortunately, they're that valuable to us, and so. Everybody tried. Everybody did everything they could, and all that, but just wasn't enough.
And 3-star players alone isn't enough. You got to include Max Crosby in there. There are a lot of holes to fill, and Pete Carroll is clear on what needs to happen.
Well, we're just going to keep going like we go, and that we just try to make it as hard for everybody as possible to compete to be the player that they're capable of being, and there's going to be opportunities now for tremendous opportunities for acquisitions to add to the team. We'll see how that goes, but we'll just try to continue to make it as competitive in all spots as we can possibly make it. And our guys have taken to the mentality. They know when I say stuff like that, they know what I'm talking about, and they have to rise up every day and battle against each other and try to see what who can win and who's going to get on the highlights the next day in the meetings and all that. And that's the foundation of it.
And Monday morning, John Spytek's job will take center stage. Decisions, talent acquisitions, and a strategy for what possibly could be the #1 overall pick in the draft. That'll do it for us. It's Raiders Chiefs from Allegiant Stadium. Kickoff set for 1:05 Pacific. Have a great weekend, everyone.